Hello YouTube! Today we're going to talk about reading. But before we do, I have some subscriber news. We have received 4 new subscribers in the past 24 hours. And they are Ideal99, Ford Mustang V6 2000. Highly recommend his videos. It's all about reptiles. The guy's got a passion. Holy Ordained and Sparknoid. Sparknoid is an anonymous supporter, and what that means is that he supports the protests against the abuses in Scientology. Definitely check out his favorite links because it's an interesting subject and I think it's important, and I think you'd be enlightened by looking at it. So, let's talk about reading. There are a lot of bad books in the world. In fact, I think there are more bad books than there are good books, and bad books are being published every day. And it's your job as the reader as to weed out the books that are bad. I think a lot of the reasons why people don't like reading books is because, frankly, they get a couple stinkers in a row and they think they're not very good at it, as opposed to the truth in which the author is just a bad author. So, with the saying that, I have a book here. It's Perdido Street Station by China Medville. It is in the steampunk genre. I love steampunk. And I'm going to show you kind of how to figure out whether this is going to be a good book or a bad book. First thing, you want to read the covers, both of them, the front, the back, and if there's an inside cover, you're going to want to read that too, because you're going to read the blurbs in the back, and you're going to read kind of like the plot synopsis, and there's probably going to be a little description about the author as well. If you get through that and you're like, this book looks boring, stop there. But if you're like, okay, this is interesting, I should keep going, the next page you should turn to is not chapter 1, but the publication page. Because you want to figure out where it was written and when it was written and how many times it was published. Because if it's a good book, it's probably been published numerous times, or at least it's a book that people are going to want to buy. So you're going to look for the copyright, and this one is just copyright 2000, so it was published in 2000. But if it was like published 1958, published 1972, published 1982, published 93, etc., you're going to say, wow, this has gone through a lot of printings. A lot of people must want to be reading this. That's a good sign. So, after you're done reading the cover and the publication page, go through the first chapter. First chapter, 10, 20 pages. If you're interested at the end of the first chapter, you've probably got a book you want to read. If at the end of the first chapter you don't like it, stop there. There are too many good books to mess around with books that you're not interested in. And that's something I really have a problem with, because I feel like I get like in the siege mode, right? And I'm like, okay, I've started this book, I have to finish it. But, unless it's for a class or something, I really don't have to finish it. So, at that point, the question is, do you have to read this book? And if it's for a class, you probably do. What you're going to want to do then is I would go to Wikipedia and I would read a synopsis of it. Wikipedia is not 100%, but it's going to give you a good starting point. At that point, I would read the end of the book. No reason, to screw around. Read the last chapter, read the last 5 pages, know how it ends. So at least you can tell people that you know how it begins and the ends. And then, instead of trying to figure out exactly what the book is about in every chapter, the idea is to do some research on the themes of the book, which is probably going to be more internet than reading. But once you come up with some themes, like let's say one of the themes is justice, and another theme is forgiveness, another theme is revenge. You take those themes and then you start looking through the book for examples of those themes. And once you get 2 or 3 of those examples, you're not going to have to read the rest of the book. Because if you've had a conversation with someone where you talk about the beginning of the book, you talk about the end of the book, and you talk about a couple of the themes of the book, they're not going to know that you didn't read it. So, if there are any questions on book reading, put them in the comments and I'll respond. If not, go find a good book, go find a good cup of coffee, and read.